Let's begin the first session of the day. Hyper personalization and use of uh, agentic AI in UPI. All right, we will have the speakers. Mr. Sourabh Tomar is a little late, so it's going to be beginning. We're going to begin the session with Mr. Khilan Haria, Chief Product Officer, Razorpay. May I please request him to come on stage? We can do a little better. We had our breakfast, right? Thank you.
Hi, folks. Very, very good morning. Back in high energy mode. Am I audible at the end without the mic? Is it okay if I or do we have a recording where you need me? Okay, I'll use the mic. Folks, very excited to talk about some interesting things in both personalization as well as possibly the next wave of personalization, which can go towards how we'll all interact with agents who will do possibly a lot of shopping on our behalf someday. And we'll talk a little bit about that. We'll take your inputs and would love to brainstorm with you. So keep this session interactive as much as possible. Sourabh, of course, heads UPI and he's an expert in many of these areas. I'll try and fill in for part of his session as well. And as he comes in, we'll hopefully kind of leverage him for Q&A. Can we go to the next slide, please? So, folks, I think this needs no introduction to all of you, but the scale at which UPI is sitting today is humongous. We all understand that the world's real-time payments, we are by far a leader. And also the pace at which the innovations rolling out continues to take this to the next level. I think what's interesting is if you take a pause and see what is going to be the next big stuff that can even push this further. And it looks hard to imagine today because like a large majority, 70-80% of all of our transactions now go through UPI. Digital commerce, if you look at it. And I can talk from the data that we see as Razorpay, while today I'm talking in individual capacity. Now the idea is how do we make this even better? It's possibly no longer about the number of transactions, percentage, all of that, because that is already there and will kind of keep growing at its own scale now in India. And we'll keep scaling those peaks. The idea is what would make the experience more magical for all of us as end users day in and day out. So if you go to next slide, I'll start covering some of our thoughts on this. I think there are three big pillars the way we look at it in this one. I think the first one is the experience and the journeys. Today, the journey that all of us as users get is a little similar irrespective of our context, where we are, who we are, which merchant have we interacted with this customer or with this merchant earlier, and which app we are at. So today, the lack of context, etc., is not as passed through, and hence the interaction, the journeys and the steps we go through is kind of more or less similar. And of course, there are things like light, etc., which make some of this easier, better already. But can we look at other things which could scale this further as well? I think trust, where part of it is consent. So consent is static. Like light is an example. It's a static consent taken one time that you can now use my limited balance stored on my phone and the token to do some of these transactions. Even the security checks that way are uniform because, again, example of light again, where it looks, uniform, static. So can we move some of these things to dynamic? Basis context, basis where we are, what we're doing right now as an activity. And that's where the last leg also comes in. The whole value that a user is expecting. India is a value first market. So how do we ensure that the value personalization is also very contextual? So the next big wave, if you look at all of these three, is if we can look at the experience, the value and the trust that a user is expecting to be personalized, then there are possibilities that our experience would become more seamless, would scale it to next level as we get there. Next slide, please. Yeah. So we'll now start getting into details. Again, we'll first maybe give a primer as per our understanding. When we say hyper-personalization, what does it really mean? This is not necessarily in the context of UPI. Just the personalization 101, as we look at it, the traditionally pre the personalization era, you would look at, giving the same experience to everyone. Let's take an example. Let's say Razorpay.com loads. It loads as the same web page for everyone. The second wave of that was where it kind of gets to static segments. Let's take that as an example. Razorpay.com for a user in India loads differently for a user in US, in Malaysia and Singapore. These are the four markets we loosely operate in some way. Now, even within India, it could load differently for enterprise customers versus an SME versus a startup, for customer who's only doing in-person payments. So the more and more we understand, these contexts can become not just static segments, but can be signals in real time through which we serve the right content at the right time. I give an example of a website. The same stuff could apply to campaigns that we do. Now, if I go to reach out to these customers through social media, through advertising, through first-party channels like my own SMS, email, or WhatsApp, all of that again generic against can we predict the expectation and make some of these again contextual, intelligent. So that's the direction we could kind of get things to, and of course, all of this in the context of payments. Now, if you start thinking of these, where some of these can kind of merge, the example I gave is traditional web, but start thinking all of these examples, parallels, where it can take us to the payments world, how things would kind of go different over there. The engagement that we have can truly be transformed. Yeah, the last two dimensions over there is. In the absence of some of this, the avenues and opportunities that businesses have to drive higher conversions and what the industry calls higher ARPU, to be able to cross-sell, upsell, all of those are harder and harder. You could still do it, but if you get to hyper-personalization, hopefully the end outcome of very high conversion and significantly improved ARPU could become real for businesses. Over the next 3-4 slides, we'll try and map some of this back into payments. When we say hyper-personalization, this is where things are headed, this is what things look like. What could these mean in the world and in the context of payments? Yeah. So let's take this specific example itself. As a customer, all of us are expecting that our bank, for example, has a 360 view on us. Right? And if the bank has a 360 view, then again the possibility keeps exploding. Unless the bank understands who we are as a user, what do we possibly need right now? Why are we here? It's harder for them to personalize the journey for us. So you apply the same 3-4 principles of the last slide, but this is what customers are slowly expecting. Next slide again. Yeah. So you think of this dimension, and that's where potentially opportunities for UPI come in. To begin with, at the time of onboarding, as the next couple of 100 million users come on board, we are today possibly at 350 to 400 million active users on UPI. As we get to 500, 600, every next 100 will be super hard, and hence we will need to really contextualize the onboarding journey. So I think the first aspect that's going to be really important if we think, put ourselves in the shoes of UPI, is the same example of, the website that I gave, the personalization journey, hyper-personalization. Can we apply to UPI onboarding for new users? Can that onboarding be predictive? Can we do behavioral-based learning, identification, segmentation, and personalization through the onboarding journey? So I think the leg on the left is both onboarding and a little bit of it is post-onboarding as well. But this is the journey of customer experience that could kind of magnify. Journey on the right is the journey dealing with real money flows. And again, bunch of opportunities. We're just tailoring some examples today. These are not like exhaustive. These examples are for all of us to start thinking and start visualizing the direction and start trying out tinkering with some of these things as various players in the ecosystem. I think the one that comes naturally to everyone is credit lines, contextual EMIs, understanding the user, understanding where the user is, who he or she is, possibilities of unlocking credit line could make this very, very personalized on the money movement flow. Even the journey of virtual credit cards, contextual EMI, all of these could be along similar lines. And very similar, another 2-3 things that's happening is light we spoke about already. It's there. Can it become more contextual, more personalized? SBMD as a journey. The whole single block multi-debit that's been around for the secondary market as it scales to other categories of merchants out there. Is there an opportunity that leveraging the whole single, authorization from the user and multiple debits, could we find a way again to personalize this, especially for very high frequency applications, right? Like if I'm ordering, groceries very frequently from a Blinkit or a Big Basket, this could be a great example where, might as well give like a single block of 10K for this month because that's generally my grocery order. Just keep debiting from that every time. And the last leg of it eventually could even be AI-driven commerce, where a lot of this is happening, not just by humans, but human in the loop, but the assistant doing on our behalf. And we'll talk a little bit about that, get some inputs from you folks as well. Many of us, the customer behavior we understand in India, especially on the last leg, is India is less a do-it-yourself market. It's more a do-it-for-me market. We all would prefer to, for every small task, just send a WhatsApp or call someone to do it on our behalf, if we could afford. So whoever can tries to do that. And that's where AI could become that, amazing do-it-for-me assistant who could drive a lot of these, outcomes for us as accuracy keeps improving over time. All of this, again, the foundational stuff is the trust and security layer. That's where, again, a lot of scope for personalization. But in the absence of that, it's very hard to solve for that, given you're talking about money movement today. Go to the next slide, please. We'll go through some of these examples. We'll start with the onboarding journey. I think as we were discussing, the onboarding today, goes through journeys such as a user having to authenticate, verify through the Aadhaar, through the debit card, through a bunch of other form factors. How can we again make this a little bit more personalized? So there are possibilities over here. One simple example could be simplified onboarding, at the time of account creation through QR linking. And another possibility over here is, the credit card, especially as RCC on UPI scales up. The RCC onboarding for the user again can be personalized, where at the time of us getting the card, can the card be seeded into multiple applications through a push rather than a pull, right? So all of these, through multiple avenues, the onboarding journeys itself can become seamless, simple, and powerful. Yeah. Compared to that 8 to 10 confusing steps, many of us don't necessarily remember our Aadhaar number. Many of us don't carry a debit card thanks to UPI. So it's harder to link it today in the absence of those things sometimes. So those could be simplified. I think the next one is repeated authorizations. I think as we were speaking about use case where if I'm frequently, for example, purchasing grocery from Blinkit, the context is there that the user is Khilan. If the user can be identified and the merchant here is Blinkit, and the address to where Khilan is delivering is the same address. So there is fair amount of, risk signals built in over here. Leveraging these signals, could we make the journey seamless where can we get rid of the PIN or the OTP? And can we maybe have a real-time credit line out there which could solve for these and make this loosely in the old context, what we used to call BNPL? Can we convert this transaction into, let me just do convenience credit because I'm purchasing actively. So maybe just pay it at the end of the month simply. So these are again opportunities where this authorization step, which could be both a feature and a bug, could be a hindrance for many users who want to get through the transaction quickly, can possibly solved in some of these ways through credit line. If you look at the next one, similar example, a lot of us are looking at purchasing higher value which are not easily affordable to us. EMIs in the country is growing, especially EMIs on top of credit card. Having said that, the discovery of EMI and the personalization of EMI is very, very hard. Like businesses have to run static offers for every single user. Like when I bought my last washing machine, I didn't need a 3,000 discount on my EMI, but the bank gave me because it gave to everyone for that brand. So this could have been personalized where the user who really needed this nudge to buy that goods or service could actually have been given a higher discount, and we would have uplifted conversion. The user who didn't need could possibly have not been given. Uh, I think more than just the discount value and the benefits and all, even next level is the discovery of these EMIs. These are harder to do, especially as the form factor changes to QR. So that's where a lot of opportunities on contextual EMI, where these things could be solved through both instant personalized EMIs as well as cashbacks, etc., linked to it, again through UPI QR. Yeah, these QRs of course can be personalized, can be dynamic, can be linked to the transaction, to that user, can be at the point of store, can be online through all of these journeys. And the next one, I think all of you, I think have seen this possibly in the Unveil, but the whole risk-based authentication, where uh, we are all any which ways using these Face ID or the fingerprint on our phones for specific scenarios where the transaction sees some anomaly. The anomaly can be a new merchant for the first time, or can be a higher value, or can be a new, geolocation. Can be any anomaly where, a secondary authentication on the user is taken through an existing identity that the user is well used to, such as biometric, uh, can deepen trust with the user while it adds a small extra friction. But that friction is very, very natural because you just got to get the phone in front of you, which any which ways is here. So you're just doing this and it solves for a bunch of risks. So these personalized risk-based authentication, when to trigger is the real beauty of it. But again, this could deepen trust for folks who got small worries, this and that, etc. And this could also deepen the way banks eventually build a lot of insights on when to delegate, when not to delegate, trust, when to do ABCD, light transactions, do we need to intervene, etc. So super excited by this whole biometric wave, currently available as a step-on authentication, but even in step-on, it can be an extremely powerful authentication. I think the next leap possibly is the journey of agentic commerce. I think as we are discovering today, the whole discovery uh, is not hyper personalized to n equal to one user. I think that's where with the agentic wave, it has the potential to get there, where when Khilan as a user is discovering for ABCD, the response that he gets from the same merchant and the same brand is different than Saurabh is doing it. So I think the first leg is that's where we think agentic commerce could take off, because systems can respond to what users do, what users' needs are, who they are, can hyper personalize basis the context, basis the past history, can anticipate the needs. I think at the same time, our belief is that there is going to be a strong consent layer and a strong trust factor needed out there. So the first set of journeys will start with human in the loop, possibly, and eventually they can become autonomous and proactive for the user. An example could be if my monthly stock of a particular item that I order every time, let's say my washing machine powder gets over generally every month, or diapers for my kid, it will eventually get to a state where it can be autonomous and order on my behalf. But I think that journey is going to be after it gets trust from all of us. Uh, and yeah, last leg could be payments could then evolve into being hyper personalized and predictive, and more intelligent as well as the ecosystem scales. So these are what I personally believe as a direction in which we might see the way of agentic. Still very early. It's all what I'm hypothesizing. If you go to next slide, we'll talk through some more next level details of these. I think why I believe India is possibly ripe for agentic commerce. We've got 200 million plus LLM users today. Now, of course, the topmost LLM that's used, we all know, but there is also 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're not even talking about the use of AI inside apps. This is all outside of it right now, which is already become very, very big. On the other hand, if you look at UPI, You all know I don't need to keep talking about the power, but 120 billion transactions. E-commerce continues to grow for us. At the same time, e-commerce is still a very small part of overall commerce in the country. So the growth is still there, headroom is there for us. Voice queries, because India as a user, we just spoke about the fact that you're a do it for me user, we've got multiple languages, typing is hard, QWERTY is not natural for people who are not used to QWERTY as a keypad. We're all natural, we've been doing it now for years and years, so we're used to it. Any time a new user graduates into this user experience, there is a learning curve. So that learning curve eventually someday users will stop wanting to do. So the next 20 million users who will come into some sort of earning capacity might expect a different UX, and voice seems to be one of the UX that's at least growing in queries today in the country across multiple dimensions. The last thing, a public data from one of the LLM says that 3% of all their queries today, or maybe 2.5, 2.8, something in that zone, I forgot, is already commerce queries. But of course, we can't finish the transaction today. So multiple indications suggest that the coming together of all of these forces will possibly forever change how you and I purchase and do commerce activities day in and day out in the digital world. Next slide. I think this is what we were talking a little bit earlier as well. Like from the time I could have someone book flight tickets for me or a cab for me, I have not done it myself. And my parents would say the same thing, they were using a travel agent. So they've also never done it on going on Make My Trip. Of course, we can say Make My Trip is very big, that's great, but that's still 20% of India's travel market. So the other 80 is still agents and ABC and all, right? So of course, those travel agents today are human agents. Think of these as virtual agents on our behalf who are actually as powerful, as impactful, possibly more personalized as they learn context with us. For folks who use a particular LLM, you know that as you keep chatting, the context just goes richer and richer. The depth and the understanding about us just keeps going deeper and deeper. So one fundamental trait different from the Western geographies for India is even more ripe for it. Personally, I believe like the mobile wave that came, we got a head start in growth compared to Western waves because we didn't have enough desktop adoption. I think it could be another India moment where, because the number of new users coming in the ecosystem is still going to explode over the next 5 years who not seen the old experience. And second fundamental view that we all prefer do it for me. And I've run products and businesses now for 15 years, and I can tell you a lot of my B2B customers in whatever industry, I've done 4 industries in B2B now, prefer do it for me. And B2C more so if they can. B2B can afford, of course, afford it a lot more easily. So that's where I think things are going. The mindset can go beyond just delivery. I think today it's largely execution of task, etc. Like I have created a small micro agent that looks at all the leave requests from my team, auto approves it. All reimbursement requests up to a certain number, amount, ABC, through guardrails, auto approves it. So starting to use for task, which is the second one out there. I think slowly we'll start doing it for the third one, which is actually discovering and purchasing as well. So we all would prefer someone doing it on our behalf if we could. That's, I think, that, and the second, voice as a natural UX and QWERTY as not a natural UX. So new users might find it more intuitive, and also older users who possibly have purchasing power parity but today are not able to do digital commerce activity on their own might start doing. Next slide, please. I think now if you look at the dimensions of agentic, what could be the possibility, right? I think currently the payments world presents some foundational enablements for us to solve together, for us to get to this, and we will learn, we'll try out, we'll experiment, we'll see where this goes. But number one, for folks who are old enough like me would remember 2010-11 when we introduced second factor in the country for every digital transaction. And at that point, it looked like it's possibly a hindrance. But that's one of the single biggest reason India's digital economy has grown. And so much of trust that users have, users are in control of the money. The frauds are bare minimal compared to any other geography. So what has been our biggest strength so far might end up being possibly our biggest weakness in the agentic journey. So we've got to find a way to marry both of these. We've got to find a way to find the balance now if you go to scale to agentic. And already there are some solutions out there. We spoke about some of them at the beginning, which allow some of these things. I still think the reason it might still work in our favor is the early adopters, the alpha users in any new innovation and the chasm curve where the tech changes fully will want control, especially with respect to money movement. And that control will come because of 2FA. So if we can use that to our advantage, it could work to get the early users out of the curve very, very quickly and to start scaling this. I think second is the human in the loop problem. Uh, Today, as we discussed, there is a need for a delegation, but with money movement, there is possibly a need for a human in the loop as well. So how do we find the right balance as we get to payments? When do we need a human in the loop where I want to approve every transaction versus when I want the agent to take actions on my behalf and move money for me? Next slide, please. There are 3-4 frameworks through which we will start brainstorming, and would love for some inputs and open up for questions very soon. I think the first is mandates. As you would all know, I could just set up some mandate saying that up to this amount don't ask. So that maybe the first trust I'll build is at least all my day-to-day grocery orders which are less than 1,000 rupees. For the next 6 months, don't ask me. Do it on my behalf. Slowly I'll build trust. I'll learn, I'll understand where things are. So I might just give a mandate along those lines. I think second is you will start seeing some of these, conversational payment interfaces. While we're calling it in chat, think of it as any new UX paradigm where how can the merchant checkout kind of get invoked for a real-time authorization authentication. Third is, of course, the direction of wallet, and fourth is cards, which is not here. So these will apply to multiple form factors. Wallet is not just necessarily a PPI wallet as we see, but it could even be the UPI Lite wallet. So any other form where I've already done some secure delegation could be leveraged without a second factor. So we'll start seeing some of these patterns. We'll go to next few slides and quickly show you some glimpses from our side. Talk about a few of these. Can we go to next slide? Yeah. So I think mandate, as you would imagine, I would authorize and set up some limit. The example we spoke about, let's say SBMD. I can say that my general grocery purchases are 10,000 a month. I mostly use Big Basket. So Big Basket, you got 10K from me. You can debit as much as you like for the next 1 month, but only if a transaction is less than 500. So still, if I'm purchasing more, I want to manually review it. So those are limits and guardrails I might end up setting through these mandate framework. And that then allows some bit of delegation with some bit of control still in my hands. Everyone with me so far? Next slide, please. I think the in conversational UX around this payments, this could be even more interesting. Because what will happen is that in the whole journey, which is now naturally a conversational journey, we could all think of happening inside WhatsApp as well, because WhatsApp is where all of us live. So we are just conversing through chats again over there or voice messages over there. Can we invoke a checkout? And I think many of you who travel or have at least once used a metro in Mumbai would know that that interface is not as painful. It is actually pretty useful. You could invoke in the journey a payment interface. So think of something similar, but something maybe built in for this era. Built in for the conversational UX era, where a merchant payment can be invoked for the user to specifically authorize transactions on their behalf. Yeah. So that's the second one, the wallet journey, and that wallet can be a UPI Lite wallet, can be any other forms of wallet, and can be a specific authorization we take. Can be all of these put together. The third one is if you have a balance with you, you're not authorizing every time. And there are some of these demos happening from multiple folks over here, but there's one glass demo where you could scan and then just make a payment through a light balance. So this is where your power of wallet comes in, because I have again done a pre-approval to a wallet, and wallet has some guardrails, a light balance that only transactions of particular average order value below that transaction value, and I've got a balance is only up to that. So there are some guardrails set in already. So those are frameworks through which we could get to the third UX. We go to next slide. We'll just conclude quickly. Open up for questions after that. Yeah. I think actually we're done. Sorry. So concluding, I think in the world of payments, across the customer experience journey and the money movement journey, there's a lot of scope for personalization. A lot of learnings for us from various other industries that do personalization. So all the ecosystem partners, PSPs out there, various folks who are doing something alongside UPI, various opportunities for all of us to brainstorm, tinker, innovate, and get some of these into pilots. And the super last leg could be the agentic commerce. And very early, we are all still dreaming where this goes. But all user behavior patterns indicate it's going to happen. Thanks, folks, for taking time listening to me. Opening for questions if there are any. Just checking if Saurabh's around or he might still be stuck. No worries. Thanks.
Thank you so much, sir, for a lovely
Hey.
yeah, rundown. Can you elaborate a little bit more on LLMs, the exact use of LLMs that you envisage?
Can you elaborate your
LLM?
question? Sorry.
Yeah, could you elaborate a little bit more on the use of LLMs, as you mentioned?
Use of
which is-
LLMs for what? Can you elaborate again?
Yeah, the topic that we're talking about, exactly the
A
e-commerce.
little bit more. Can you go a little bit deeper so I'll understand the question more if you're okay?
So where exactly would LLM fit in? Are you going to have like a wrapper around ChatGPT, which would actually come into for payments, etc.? How would you initiate that? Or
See, we all don't know. Again, so we are
Okay.
all brainstorming where this goes, but I'll share my personal view.
Sure.
There could be 2-3 type of UXs that will emerge. The UX number one, which I think will be low friction for all of us as users to try is, I'm already using the Big Basket or the Blinkit app. So I'll open the app and inside the app, rather than me, searching, clicking on the UI to add that item, I'll just say, 1 kilo kanda add kar do, 1 kilo aloo add kar do, 2 milk ka packet add kar do. I might just say that, right? That's one UX pattern. Uh, the way I possibly today maybe store it somewhere in my chat, WhatsApp, all of those, right? Those could be one patterns, etc. The second pattern could be inside the LLMs itself. And we've seen some protocols being announced, the ACP protocol, the AP2 protocol, a bunch of other stuff that's being there. And we'll still see where things are heading. It's still evolving quickly. MCP as a framework came, A2 as a framework came. So there are multiple ways through which the catalog might get exposed to these LLMs. Think of it the way today a catalog gets exposed to Google. Many of these brands and merchants routed through Google Shopping feed as an example. And then that feed gets exposed in various search interfaces, right? So it could go in that direction where through some mechanism, the MCP, reverse feed like Google Shopping, through some of these, we'll start seeing these, catalog being exposed. One direction, personally, I am envisaging, and we saw that glimpse 2 days back from GPT, is there could be an app store inside GPT where we can discover Big Basket. I can click on it and formally authorize it and approve it and one time do a login. And that allows now GPT to connect to Big Basket on my behalf through, today they've announced through MCP, tomorrow it could be through some other means. So it connects for the catalog and the feed journey then. Yeah.
Hello. Hello.
We're getting the mic, 1 second. Sorry.
Hello. Yeah. Hi, Khilan, here.
Sorry, we'll take you after this one, yeah.
Hi, Khilan, here. Fantastic session. In the agentic commerce slide, you talked about consent layer. You think in coming days when agent will be more in the financial space, you think a framework like KYA, similar to KYC, your agent, will come in picture and how it might look like?
There could be. I think what we'll see is multiple solutions needed around authenticity and verifiability. I don't know the answers to it, but across the entire commerce journey in agents, there will be solves needed so the three parties can trust each other, or actually maybe more than 3-4 parties. The agent, the user, the merchant, the payment leg. Like there are 4-5 parties. I think everyone needs to be able to trust each other. Their things are not getting tampered. So there will be some constructs of verifiability, authenticity. I think we are seeing some of that being experimented, tinkered. I don't know where it will head. But yeah, I think those are good areas to brainstorm because those will be needed as the commerce wave scales.
Yeah, hi. Hi, Khilan. I have a question on the adoption. So what do you think, how will be the adoption kicking in wherever you are giving a control in terms of authorization, right? Setting up a mandate in agentic commerce, or you take up the SBMD case, right? Where in a e-commerce journey, right, on the checkout, I think it's a very quick intent for a user. They want to, quickly do the purchase. Wherever there's a friction that is coming in, right? So I assume that there might be a dropout of people won't adopt to it. So what is your viewpoint in this? And probably from a merchant standpoint, how do you increase adoption in these payment methods?
See, I don't think it's an additional friction step. See, all of us as users want control of our money. So we want to set up, we want to set guardrails, etc. It's a one-time step. So I don't think that is that big a hindrance in my read at least. Like we are saying, 2FA has been a feature for us more than a bug, right? So it's worked in our advantage, in our favor. I think it might work in our advantage because users today don't want to blankly delegate मेरा पूरा bank account जो करना है करो. So those guardrails setup etc. might work in our favor is my read at least. For businesses, I don't think it will lead to conversion drop. I think agentic commerce will possibly become a 5% channel of revenue for most merchants in 12 months at the bare minimum. We could be surprised if it is larger. So for businesses who are not at it yet, they might end up being behind on this one specific channel.
Hi, Khilan.
Hi, there's one question there. I'll just take that.
Hi, Khilan. Abhishek here from HDFC Bank.
Hey, Abhishek.
Great session, as always. Just one question, in fact, just kind of teeing off on what he said about the larger agentic commerce market size from from an opportunity perspective. If you can share some insights, what is it today, and probably what it look like 5-10 years down the road?
I think today it's minimal. I think the transactions that are happening inside an agent is negligible today. We are slowly starting to see some of the in-app agents and those transactions, kicking in. But it's minuscule if I look at India. Even if I look at West, my understanding is it's minuscule. I am not an expert on outside of India. I think this will take off massively. That's what we were discussing. It's very hard to predict the size. It's a new tech. It's a new innovation. We all don't know. I think if you ask me one thing, it will depend on accuracy. So theoretically, conversation as a UX has existed for a long time. Why am I personally excited by the commerce wave linked to conversation, even if we talk in-app for the first time, is because now it is at a state where I can trust the agent to be as accurate to understand me and do these tasks of purchases or commerce activities on my behalf. The tech did not allow before this wave of, generative AI. That's the reason I think for the first time we are there. I might be surprised if it is not 5% next year at least, is my pessimistic guess right now of all the transactions a particular merchant does.
Hi. Hi, I'm Ambuj Bhatnagar. I'm from Axis Bank. First of all, good session. The question that I have is the reason that today we see India, the place where we are in payment side, is because the UPI is a inclusive technology. The way that you guys are, you're showing the dream, is it inclusive is the question that I have. Because the examples that we're taking is taking into consideration the likes of Blinkit, Big Basket. But we all know that 60% of India resides in tier 2 and tier 3. We know that many of them are still working with Kirana stores or purchasing stationeries from small businesses. How do we make these agentic AIs more inclusive to work for India rather than for few people or few companies which are technology heavy?
Sure. No, so I gave those examples because I think the early adoption of digital commerce, and I was talking only digital commerce. I am again not an expert in in-store commerce. I think there will be innovations over there. I think Sourabh was there. He would have shared some more examples along those lines. I think in the direction of digital commerce at least, I think the early adoption will always happen with areas where there is more transaction happening than small transaction. So larger merchants first, then smaller merchants when this kind of tech is coming where there's trust needed. But if it picks up, I think the folks will benefit the most are smaller merchants because discovery could get democratized again. Right? So I don't think this tech is only for larger merchants. I gave that example because that's easy for all of us to understand. And that's where the first wave of adoption for the first 3 months will come is my guess. I'll be surprised if it doesn't reach to small merchants in the next 12 months in a big way. Again, I'm talking only digital. So the Kirana example, in-store and all, it's hard for me to relate. What I personally believe is there will be larger, AI opportunities there, not just at the purchase leg, because purchase leg you are in store, it's okay, you're happy to scan, you're happy to tap your phone, all of those through frameworks that are available. So I don't know if there is a real need along those lines, but the real need of agentic over there will be the enablement and co-pilot leg, is the way I look at it. It necessarily does not take the human out in the loop, and that's where given accuracy is hard to get by. If there is a human in the loop who's actually the person at the store for any activity, the power of it might become even bigger and bigger and larger.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
So, can we take
Hi.
last one or two?
Yeah,
My
name is Kushagr. I belong to MasterCard. Thanks for the wonderful session that you gave today. So my question is around trust. You mentioned a lot of things regarding trust. So when two-factor authentication came in around 2010, right? That's where we were able to build trust for our customers, for everybody who's using that. So now we are talking about a lot of pre-authentication. So how do you build that, rails around what is right and what is wrong? How do we, detect fraud? Of course, there are multiple tools in the market that are doing, but with technology, fraud also evolves, right? So the bottom line question that I have is, how do you build trust that we will be able to guard your money? We spoke about pre-authentication of a bunch of money. When you spoke about, okay, once the authentication is done, this much amount can be deducted or whatever, right? The shopping will happen on my behalf. So how do you build that trust around building those guardrails around, okay, this is the money which is going to be safe, it is not going to be used? Because we have seen, right, uh, probably hackers or people like that can be, it can be a tricky situation is what I would like to say.
I think you'll have to find answers. I see. I think we've already seen two frameworks in the last 5-6 years, which have slowly started, making purchases more seamless. Let's take recurring as an example. A 2019 guideline, and slowly now transactions up to 15K are allowed without, a second factor, right? And I think UPI Autopay is possibly scaling much faster than UPI one time. Annual growth, UPI teams around to share numbers, right? So I think it's users are giving trust, it's scaling, it's growing, it's fully secure as the tech. I think disputes continue to be as low as UPI one time. So I think there are enough examples where this has happened and this can happen. I think there are enough guardrails built in, like the autopay example. There is a 15K guardrail, there is a pre-debit notification. So I think there are enough guardrails and value chains built in because India wants trust, right? So I think that is where, when I know yesterday I remember someone spoke about it in a biometric launch, that friction generally is used as an abuse term or a bad term or a villain. Friction is not necessarily bad, at least for payment authorization. So this PPDN is an example for us in the recurring world, right? So I think we'll have to find our own guardrails and examples, or opportunities similar to those examples we've seen in autopay as a wave. We've seen similar in light as a wave, right? So we've got two waves right now working in our largest instrument UPI. I know there are more working other instruments as well. So I think we'll have to find our answers as we go to agentic, which are similar to this, which can solve for us some of the examples that you spoke about. Yeah.
Hello, this is Karthik from Deloitte. So, Khilan, we saw your statistic at the start in terms of onboarding of the users, and a lot of users already using digital payment and UPI. While we continue to thrive to onboard few more users, there is still a youth segment which are like more than 65 years of age who are not actively using, or you are not even onboarded, right? So what is your view on getting those segment also on board in terms of personalization of those users?
I think you are right. I think some of the examples you spoke about, starting from the linking journey, if it can be more seamless. A lot of these people don't even want to use a debit card. They've generally used checks, etc., or cash, right? So you're competing with those form factors which were traditional. So I think that is where some of the attempts you're talking about personalization, I think, can absolutely be targeted at that, cohort of users you spoke about, and we can solve for specific use cases. I think the framework allows enough opportunities today that if someone were to build a UPI app targeted at that cohort of users, they could personalize every single step in the journey to make it less intimidating the way you're talking about, and still solve for that. So I think there are opportunities for sure, and those are some of the examples through which you might end up unlocking 10, 20, 50 million new users coming into UPI as well. Folks, I'm going to have to pause, but I'm around for 5-10 more minutes outside. Thanks so much for taking time.
Last one
Can I
question.
take, are we good with time, or? Okay, one last one, sorry.
Sir, my name is Delsa. I'm from South Indian Bank. So it's like a broad question, broad problem statement I am referring here. So we have different TSPs, TPAPs, and merchant apps. And we have Lite, we have SBMD, now we have Mandate. All these features are there. So as you know, the culture or the temptation of the youth is that whenever we are offering some offers or something, people will switch from one app to the another. So what happens to the lights created over there, SBMD created over there? I have myself have like four to five TPAPs in my at my end, and I have different merchants apps at my end. So when we are talking about SBMD or light, I have to load money in all these places and lock it over there. So do you see anywhere we are going, coming everything together into one place?
Sorry, I not the best place to answer this. Maybe we should ask to the UPI team for their input. I can tell you the data I see from the Razorpay side, right? To bring that anecdote, right? Most of the light transactions we see, originate from one specific UPI app for a user, which means that I think users understand that for use cases like light, at least, generally there is a preference of one app, and most users are using that. So I think that behavior is slowly shifting there, and there is, loosely to say, for UPI apps, it's a good sign because there is more retention. It's the behavior is not shifting as easily when cashbacks are available. That's the data we are seeing. But your broader question is right, that users have a right to shift. It is interoperable. Can some of these things also become interoperable? It is generally hard from a trust and safety layer, from what I understand. The underneath principles, the architecture of it. But good question for all of us to brainstorm to see if we can make some of these also interoperable. Hey, thanks folks for taking time listening in to me. Appreciate it.